I'm Tanya LaBuick, and this is Strong Like a Girl. Today we're going to be speaking with Amy Hyatt, who has worked for high-profile organizations including the 2000 Sydney Olympics, the 2002 Salt Lake Olympics, the University of Minnesota, and is currently in her 21st year with Minnesota Public Radio and America Public Media. Part of my career journey took me to Salt Lake City, Utah for the 2002 Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games. It is there in Utah that I made some of the best friends of my life. I left Utah 23 years ago and have missed it ever since. My guest today and I have done a lot of life together over that 23 years. There have been weddings, divorces, trips, illness, tragedy, death, and hours of conversation about God, life, faith, men, addiction, trauma, abuse, and an equal number of hours spent laughing and visiting and enjoying each other. We share a connection that is deep and strong, and we can pick up where we left off in a conversation months or years prior and just continue on like no time has passed. I am lucky to have her in my life. She is one of the smartest people I know, kind-hearted and funny as hell. I am very, very pleased to welcome to the show today Amy H. Dog Hyatt, one of my dearest friends, colleagues, and dare I say, reciprocal champion. Welcome to Strong Like a Girl, H. How are you?
I'm great, Tanya LaTanya.
Right on. Well, I thank you very, very much for joining me today and you know, supporting me in this endeavor. You've been, you know, a supporter of mine for a very long time, obviously, and so I appreciate you very, very much. I was wondering if you would tell our listeners kind of where this started for us. So, do you remember meeting me the first time in Salt Lake City?
Yes, the first thing that popped out at me was your very, very big hair.
Still have it, yeah.
I was I was working in Salt Lake. I had worked for the Sydney Olympics and had such a good time and such a good experience that I wanted to keep it going. And I wound up getting a wonderful job with a funky little department called the Look of the Games, which is basically just a funny way of saying the decorating committee, the environmental graphics for the entire Winter Games. So I was the venue coordinator, and it was about 2 years prior, and we didn't have a manager. We did have a director, and there were a number of people in place. But when it came to design was going well, but then it needed to move into operations, and that was where I was. And then the manager of the operations and that kit and caboodle needed to be hired, and that person was you. And then you came in. I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that I would be reporting to you. And I knew you had and when I met you, I was struck by your big hair, your very thick, what I considered thick Canadian accent, which is saying something because I'm Minnesotan. You can hear it, Minnesotan. And you came in and you had a very strong, steady, hardcore presence that we all 90% of the time appreciated and enjoyed, and 10% of the time drove us nuts and cursed you under our breath. And I would suppose that's what a good manager is. So you are my boss, and I consider you one of my friends now, and I also consider you a mentor.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, like I said in the intro, Salt Lake was a lot of things for me, but certainly a catalyst for so many good friendships that I could never, even put into words kind of like how many of us are still friends 20 some years later, right? Like it's ridiculous. So what's your favorite memory from the Salt Lake Olympics?
The shit that we give each other.
The camaraderie.
The team, the camaraderie, the team that we had was absolutely extraordinary. And it was, and I believe so. There were 21 of us on that team. And it was this combination of creative and operations, which is where I like to live. If I'm just in creative and not actually executing on anything, bummer. And the flip side is true. So where I do best and where we really thrived was creating these beautiful things, and then the actual work and spreadsheets and life of how are we going to actually make it happen. And it was round the clock. It was really, really hard. And then because of it was absolutely one of the hardest things that I've ever done. And it has served me my entire life. The lessons I learned when I left, I was 30, 32 years old when I worked that job, and it has stayed with me my entire life. I loved it, and it was
Yeah.
extremely challenging.
It is extremely challenging, and of course, I loved it too. And I call you H. That's normally what I call you, is just H, and your last name is Hyatt. But you got the nickname H Dog very affectionately from one of our teammates. I think Chris Dillsaber was the guy that gave that to you, and then it's kind of gotten modified over. Why did he call? I don't even remember why he called you H Dog.
No idea.
Yeah,
H-Dog.
that's
We
Dillsaber.
sat
Yeah.
next to each other, we shared a cube, and, nicknames are they're just so incredibly, personal, aren't they?
Yep.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah, they're good.
everybody from that time, a lot of people, call me H-Dog. Nobody around here, nobody at my, current job of 21 years calls me H-Dog, but I respond, I respond to it, especially with my Salt Lake friends.
Yeah. Yeah. I like nicknames too. I have probably, a couple flying around out there. But what was your life like after Salt Lake? So like we're
Well, I
similar
was excited.
ages, right? So yeah, 32.
Mhm, mhm. I was very excited to get back to Minnesota. As I had mentioned, I had worked the Sydney Olympics. I had worked the Salt Lake Olympics, and I think working the Olympics is like 1 year working for an Olympic committee is like 3 or 4 years anywhere else. So I was excited to get back to Minnesota and put some roots down. And I was with 2 Olympics under my belt. I wanted to work for an organization that I felt very strongly in regarding the mission, and that was I want to put my talents and my efforts to work at either the University of Minnesota, which is my alma mater, go Gophers, or Minnesota Public Radio. And I uh, started applying for jobs, and lo and behold, the University of Minnesota hired me first, and as an event manager of the Alumni Association's 100th anniversary. So that was a 20-month gig. Anybody who works in events knows that it's it's a real privilege to get a job where you're working um, where you don't have an end date. A lot of times when you get a job like the Olympics or as an event manager, you're working and it's it's you're hired, and that gig was for 20 months. So I did that. I found great friends. I put my experience to work. I fell in love. I met a nice fella named Ben, um, and was loving life. And at the end uh, of, of that gig, a friend, actually the husband of a friend, sent me an email, said, "Hey, I was looking on the website at Minnesota Public Radio. I look at jobs there. I saw this job posted. I think you'd be great for it." I wasn't even looking at the time. Opened it up, event manager for Minnesota Public Radio. And I said, I'm throwing everything I have at it. And that was 21 years ago. So I got
That's
that job,
crazy.
and it's 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 absolutely wonderful. It's so that was and so I fell in love. As I said, and then I married Ben, and I bought my very first place. I had been working and had the good fortune to work all over the United States and overseas. So putting roots down, before I met him, I bought my very first condo, 575 square foot garden level, but it was all mine, God damn it.
Yeah. I know exactly what that's like. I remember Salt Lake was the first time I'd ever lived alone. And I remember I watched, Remember the Titans on my own couch, and I
Yes,
ordered a pizza, right? Like, this was my apartment, my very first cut, like, I remember all those things, so I think, that's a good stage gate in life, so,
that's
yeah.
right. So, yep, Ben moved in. We got married. Ben moved in, and we started moving forward um, with our life. Worked and then parlayed it a couple of years later into a larger townhome with a couple of different rooms, even a second bathroom. How bougie! And Ben and I, we were living our best life, going to church. Had a great job with Minnesota Public Radio. He was working, and we had great friends, and we were um, volunteers at our church, and had been given the opportunity uh, to teach children. Ben and I chose to not
Oh,
have
right,
our
yeah.
own children, and but I said I really wanted to contribute in a meaningful way to the future to future generations. Also,
No,
I just said I don't want to be the weird couple who doesn't have kids, who people are like, oh, they don't have kids and they don't like kids. I love kids. I love kids.
yeah.
And so we made a choice to teach Sunday school. And we had a lot of fun doing it. And then we were given the opportunity and the privilege of managing a new program at our very large Lutheran church with kids with disabilities, both cognitive and physical. And it was wonderful. And we had such a good time that my mom joined us as well. So for 7 years, we were managing that program and taking great trips and um, and enjoying our lives very much.
Are you comfortable telling us why you chose not to have children?
Yes, Ben um, Ben lived very successfully with mental illness. Before I met him, we met when we were in our 30s. Again, when I had returned back to Minnesota at 32, Ben was one of those uh, young men who you read about who between 18, a lot of men between 18 and 23 um, are struck with paranoid schizophrenia, and they don't know why. I mean, not just men, of course, and not just that age, but
Yep.
that's what happened to him. Now it took a while for him to get his diagnosis and get medicine that worked and things, but he was in his first year of dental school. He was 23 years old when that happened, and he lived at home. He went through his own trials, and then as an adult, he when he was healthy, and he's just like, I think I'd like to meet somebody. I need some friends. So he made his way to Mount Olivet, our church, and I was on the singles board. I didn't want to be on the singles board, but I'm like, well, if you want to change things in your life, as we know,
Yep.
you can't have the life you love if you can't have the life you want by holding on to the life that you have. You got to do something.
Yep.
So that's where we met, and 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 he was he was it was fantastic.
So what was it like for you? Because so obviously I knew Ben, but you would have been the breadwinner, right? Because his illness prevented him from holding, I would say like a high stress job, I guess if that would be fair, right? So
Oh,
you
and
were,
not just that, but he was disabled.
yeah,
Technically, he lived with the disability, and in the United States, I can't speak um, for other places, but if you're disabled, your earning potential, what you can earn, is capped, and if
okay.
you earn beyond that, um, then they take away your benefits of healthcare. So so
Yeah, and I'm
yes,
get
I was the main.
the breadwinner, and I would assume that if
Yeah,
they took away his benefits, his medications that he took to help himself would have been fairly costly. I'm gonna guess.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you were the breadwinner, the caregiver, the planner, the organizer, the financial manager, the chauffeur, and all the other things that come with that. And what did it mean for you in the relationship to have that role? Because it is a little bit untraditional, right? Like we're similar ages. We grew up, our mothers played very traditional roles in the family, those kinds of things. So you were you kind of moved into where we hadn't seen women be in a relationship. So what was that like for you?
It was it was very easy because Ben because Ben respected me. We had conversations, we were rigorously honest with each other, and we had those conversations before we got married that were, I mean, not the they weren't cute,
Yeah.
relationships and, oh, we're going to pick out, this kind of china pattern and everything. It was are we going to have a joint credit or checking
Yep.
account, those kinds of things. And he was so grateful, but he didn't take advantage of me. And I was grateful to use my skills, and we complemented each other.
Hmm.
I w- I'm a pretty intense person, and Ben was chill. So we
Yeah.
often would say he taught me, I taught him how to dial it up when needed, and he taught me how to dial it down. And so there was
Yeah.
that really healthy balance and respect and loving Ben and being with Ben and agreeing to live within our means, not
Yep.
just in theory, but like we're going to actually do this and to not pretend that it's going to be something different. By that acceptance, it was it was it was easy.
And how many years were you married?
We were married 7.5 years. We had
Great wedding.
dated for
Yeah.
and engaged. Thank you. It was wonderful having you there.
It
I
was a
love
great
those
wedding.
pictures. I love that wedding. And so we were together for about 18 months prior to getting married, and then married for 7.5 years.
Yeah. So would you like to tell us what happened for Ben in that 7 years?
Yeah. Yeah. So as I've mentioned, we were living our best life. We got to the end of 7 years of doing that, uh, the classroom at church and teaching Sunday school. I'm a woman of faith, and it was and he was a man of faith. And I thought, okay, I kind of want my Sundays back a little bit. It's a big commitment. Still wanted to go to church, but wouldn't mind going out to brunch like you, Tanya. It's my going out to brunch with friends. I mean, it's the
It is
best
the best,
meal,
yeah.
best. And I just wanted to say, well, I wonder where things will just go next. I'm going to step away, tie this in a bow, hand it off to the next volunteer, and I want my Sundays back, and I'll see where God calls me next. And again, that was with my mom as well, who was my very best friend. We were,
Yeah.
absolutely tight. She lived 4 miles away. So
Helene.
did
Helene
that.
was her name, right?
Yes, Helene.
Yeah.
That's right.
Helene, yeah.
And so yes, and so this is in, and now it's 2012, and it was spring, May of 2012, and Ben was strong, stoic, corn-fed Minnesotan, 6'3", very healthy, and he was complaining about some pain, and um, we treated it like hemorrhoids, pain in his bottom, and
Yep.
that's just what we thought it was. And he was 40 years old at the time, and then eventually, over weeks, it was May 7th. Actually, I remember the day because it was our wedding anniversary, and I had asked him to take the day off, and I did too because I had these fun plans, and he begged me to take him to the emergency room because he had so much pain, and I did so, and that started the process over the next couple of days where we learned of Ben had stage 4 cancer off the bat.
Yeah.
Um, and
Starting
it
on
was
third base.
it was yeah, it was neuroendocrine tumors in his rectum, if you can imagine. And neuroendocrine, it's a kind of cancer. If people have heard it or familiar, it's what Steve Jobs died of. So it was in his rectum. It's not pancreatic cancer. It's not colon cancer. It is neuroendocrine tumors that could be anywhere, but they were in his rectum, and it was in the lymph nodes and all those things. And again, it was stage 4. It had spread. It was high grade, which just means it's fast growing. And that was May of 2012. And he died 5.5 months later. And in between his diagnosis and his death, my mom got sick and died. And she died 20 days before Ben.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't even 3 weeks. And my and I and my life turned upside down, and I just thought, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, so I make notes when I'm gonna interview somebody, and so obviously I know your story, but I just I called this part the shit is what I called it on my notes. This is like yeah, you're in the middle of like something that I would assume kind of melted your brain in different ways, right? Like
Yes,
how did you process? Because obviously you've already mentioned that your mother and you were very, very good friends. um, so she was your friend and your mother, so and your parent, right? And then you have your husband who's young and had been healthy and like all the things, right? And I knew Ben and strong, strapping guy, and like it's a real wake up call, I think, for anybody, that just goes like, holy shit, like, this could everything can end very, very quickly, right? And so how did you now looking back because you've had some space from it, but how did you survive those pardon me 5 months or however many days it was like from the time he got diagnosed then your mom and that because you were also her caregiver, is that right?
yes, yes.
Yeah. So how did you like
Well, I
so
jumped
two
into
two people, yeah.
project management mode, so I was able to use my my skills and to create spreadsheets and ask questions and be vulnerable. I had a wonderful network of friends, chosen family friends. It was none of it was easy, and it all sucked. I remember like thinking, I'm a smart person, but I don't know. I was so fortunate. I'm like, I think oncologist means cancer doctor, right? Like that's the basics of like, it's like learning a new language, or it's like you're walking
Yeah.
along and you get tapped on the shoulder, and it's like, run for your fucking life. Like
Yeah.
it's like, wait, what? Or there's a tsunami coming, and you don't know what to do, but you can't stay there. And so it's just constant mode of survival, taking care of them. How are we going to do this? And then also the shock of 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 acceptance, of letting go piece by piece. It was I can't it's
Yeah.
very difficult to describe.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I remember very vividly when you told me that Ben was sick, and I was married at the time, and my my husband at the time had dropped to his knees and prayed immediately, and our supper, like I think, caught on fire in the stove because we ignored it and right, and so there's all these things that I think happen, and there's so many people that love you and certainly loved Ben and having had some traumatic experiences in my life, nothing like what you have experienced, but I just when I'm in those moments, I focus on very, very much on like what's in front of me, right? And I kind of everything else gets knocked out of my space. And then once things are managed or taken care of or whatever happens, then I seem to fall apart quite readily as after the fact, right? So you didn't have a lot of runway. You had 5 months and whatever and some very intense traumatic things to walk through. And, pretty much you do have a great circle of friends and stuff, but you were on your own, right? Like this was you. You were managing these things and you were doing the day to the day things with somebody and some buddies, I guess, plural, who were very sick and very vulnerable. And there's some very unpleasant jobs that come along with that when you love somebody, right? So
Absolutely.
when you look back now, what do you think? Um, and you've talked about the organization and that about it, but like, what do you think just kept you going, one foot in front of the other?
Therapist helped me, and God helped me.
Yeah,
Although uh, that's complicated because
yeah,
it's not Pollyanna. It is all God, but we had some words.
yeah. And yeah, you and I've talked a lot about God over the years, and kind of, we each have a faith, and kind of how that looks and shows up for us. And yeah, I mean, there's been lots of times when I have been very dissatisfied with what is going on around me, and yeah, made that evident. But again, like your therapist said, he can take it, right? So it's
Right.
just a way of dealing with it. So everybody always says anger is like a necessary step in healing and grief and all those different stages that we go through when something terrible happens. Why do you think it's necessary? Why do you think anger is an important thing to uh, to go through?
Oh, I think with regard to all emotions, right? God made it so it has a purpose.
Yep.
And so it's finding the purpose. So anger, righteous anger, it's it it keeps it keeps you safe. It's an outlet. The key is it's so powerful that it has to be used in extremely small doses, and it has to be very finite and very, very tailored and specific. Otherwise, it gets all over everything and it destroys.
And so after those months, and then you're on your own.
When my mom presented, right, as I got the she had some gastrointestinal issues. I will also just for transparency, mom had lived very successfully with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for
Mhm.
over a decade. They but she to the point where we kind of forgot about it. I mean, we never really forgot, but she lived
I
very
understand.
successfully. She was having some gastro uh, issues and under a doctor's care, and they were just like, "Oh, we're just going to take your gallbladder out." She's having issues with swallowing and or whatever.
Yep.
She was
Yep.
she was 70 years old and very very healthy, took care of herself. And she was having her gallbladder out, and it was the Friday of Labor Day weekend, and I was working at NPR Day at the Minnesota State Fair. I'm still working. I still have to work while
Yeah.
I'm taking care of Ben and taking him to his appointments. Um and so my the her surgery was scheduled for that Friday, and I asked my brother. I have one sibling, a twin brother, and I had asked him, "Could you please be with mom? She's having the surgery. Can you be there when she wakes up? I have to be at NPR Day at the Minnesota State Fair. It's one of the biggest events that I manage in the whole year." And he said, "Sure." So he called me that afternoon. I get the phone call, and I pick it up, and I'm like, "Hey, how's she doing?" And I remember my brother said, "Can you get somewhere quiet?" Which at the Minnesota State Fair is it's just
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Difficult.
And I just remember kind of things kind of like going kind of black, right? Like I just was
Yeah.
like, I said, "Oh God," I said, I go, "Did she die?" And he says, "No, but I need you to get somewhere quiet." And I tried. I bent down. I was in the corner of this tent. I can't even imagine what I look like. And he said they went in, they opened her up to take out the gallbladder, but there was new cancer all over everything. and they didn't take out her gallbladder. They closed her back up. She now has an infection. She's at the hospital. And I said, I'll be right there. So then I made my way, and that was the beginning of the end. And mom was in a different place where she was told, hey, once this infection is gone, we'll talk about some new treatments and chemotherapy. And she listened very politely to the oncologists and the doctors and things. And as soon as they left, she just turned to me very calmly and she says, Amy, there will be no treatment. And I said,
Ugh.
as you wish.
Yep. Yep.
And her goal was to just be home. She knew what would be involved. And she was gone 6 weeks later. And Ben, um, Ben was gone 20 days after that. And as I was losing mom, and as I came home that night from my mom, and I was sharing with Ben, I was in such grief because of learning about my mom that I was just crying. I was saying, oh my God, my mom's so sick. And Ben listened, but in his very sweet voice, I'll never forget this. He said to me, he was laying in bed and he goes, hey, Aim, I'm really sorry, but I can't really. Um, you're crying and all stuff. He goes, that's really stressing me out.
Ben.
And I'm really sorry. And I mean, he's in stage 4 cancer. He's not, and he's saying what he needs and what's happening, and he has every right to. And in that moment, that's where it was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? The man who I was the person who could comfort me because my mom is dying, and my husband is dying, and the only person who can comfort me is my mom, and now she's dying.
Yeah.
So I'm literally in the middle, and it felt like I was that in the valley of the shadow of death on both sides.
Yep.
And there I am. From where will my help come? I needed to be there for them. These were my 2 greatest loves.
Yep.
And of course, looking back, it's a privilege, right? They loved me so much. It wasn't a one-way street. These 2 loved me unconditionally, and they weren't there for the rest of my life, but I was
Yep.
able to be there for the rest of theirs, and there is beauty in that.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
agree
the
with you.
privilege that we sign up for that we don't know that we're signing up for. But if you're called to be and help and support and walk somebody home, walk a loved one home, and by home, capital H,
Yep. Yep.
home to heaven, to God, to higher power, to whatever that is for you. That's a privilege, and
Absolutely.
it'll be the hardest thing you ever do, but you also get to live with that the rest of your life. The other thing is, if you don't do it, you don't show up for folks, you have to live with that for the rest of your life too.
Yeah. I
So
can't I
it's
can't imagine
harder, choose.
that. Yeah.
There's no easy button, right?
No, there sure isn't.
No.
Um, so losing 2 people so close together, we've talked very mind-bending in the way I would describe it. So I'm just wondering if you'd like to talk about how grief showed up for you, and by asking that, I'm by no way presuming that it's gone or over. My experience with grief is that it comes in many, many coats, and certainly at times unexpected, unwelcomed, that little bastard grief. And it's always brutal. It's always brutal, right? And I don't know that it ever goes away. I think you just carry it differently as you walk home. But yeah, how did that show up for you, and then how did you manage through that? Because you had to go back to work, right? Like, yeah, your mom and Ben were both gone, and then there's you. And so what was that time like?
Yeah, well, thank you. There was no insurance. We didn't have insurance on Ben. He was very healthy. He was 40. Um I had insurance, but you know, we so there was no windfall. My father, he was still alive, so there was no inheritance, from my mom. Ben's parents, they were grieving, um, and so there was very little support. Um, they were grieving. Everybody was grieving. So
Everybody.
people didn't have capacity um, for me and or know what to do with. And the way I kind of describe it is, I had mentioned earlier I have a twin brother, and I think about my my mom and her raising us uh, as twins. It's a great idea in concept. Everybody says, "Oh, that'd be so fun." I just I can't imagine. And so when I when I lost mom, it's here's the way I think about it is when you lose somebody, a significant relationship in your life, significant. It's the day you lose them is like giving birth to what I call a grief baby. The
Huh.
baby is you you have a baby for the rest of your life. They turn 10 and then 18 and 35. You're always so you give birth to a grief baby. And losing two of two the two most important relationships in my life was like giving birth to grief baby twins. So mom, you could make the argument, well, hers was a bit more natural. Parents die before kids. She was a little older. So she was the easy baby. Ben, who got his, 5.5 months, right? We talked about that news. Ben was the colicky one. Ben needed a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And so I've got both grief babies, and all they do is shit, cry, and need to eat. Just like that's
Yeah.
that's all you're doing is dealing with that. And and Ben would cry harder, right? Because he just demanded my attention. You're getting the metaphor, right? And
Absolutely. I think it's a
so
great
as soon
metaphor,
as I
actually.
would get him down to sleep, right? Like, okay, that grief, like I'm gonna, okay, he's down. Oh God, now there's mom. Mom needs to be fed. Mom has mom's a baby. She's a nice baby. But mom still needs her diapers changed and needs food. So there's no rest. There's none. And
No rest.
and if you I can imagine, again, I don't have children of my own, but I can imagine when I hear about from moms, particularly, women, you can't do it. You can't be everything to everybody. There's always deficit. You're not giving enough attention to the one you love. Oh, I'm doing this. This one needs so much attention, and this poor one, do they know that they're loved too? I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing it well. So there's the shame of I've just spent the last 10 hours crying over Ben, and I haven't thought about mom at all. And that would send me into a spiral of shame and anguish. And it was constant. It was exhausting, and it was just there's nothing to it except for any growth that you have. Again, with grief babies, right?
Yeah.
It's I feel that the 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 timeline of grief with a loved one is very similar to the trajectory of child development. So at 3 months, a baby turns over, right? At 6 months, maybe they're sitting up. At 10 months, they start to walk. And
So it
at 12
becomes more
months, they start
independent.
maybe little tiny bit. But after a year, we don't say with a baby, we're like, well, your baby's, you know, a year, so let him out in the world. You know,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
It's the same with grief. So you
That's a
don't
great
start to
analogy.
enjoy. You don't start I didn't start enjoying my loved ones who had passed. I didn't start enjoying their company until the grief was 2.5, 3 years old, which I would say, I've heard from a number of my friends who will remain anonymous. That's about when you start enjoying kids, right? It's called terrible
Yeah.
twos for a reason. The only thing harder than the first year of losing a loved one is the second
It's the
year.
second year.
It's all of the firsts are gone, and you're just like that magical thinking. You think, oh well, I got through the first year, so now it'll be a little bit easier. And the calendar turns, and you're like, well, this still sucks. This is still
Yeah.
hard. And any growth that you see or feel is so microscopic that you feel during those times that it's never going to get easier, that this is what is my life is going to be like for the rest of my life. Now we know that's not true, but don't try telling that to somebody who's at the
Yeah.
beginning. Don't say to a mom who's sleep deprived,
Yeah.
oh, well, you'll really start enjoying them when they're about 3 years old. It's like they're 3 months old,
Yeah.
and
That's a long time.
I, and I'm about to pull my hair out.
Yeah, I think it's a great analogy, I think grief shows up for people very differently and in all kinds of ways, right? Just like people love differently, I think they grieve differently. I don't think there's a right way or wrong way. I think many, many, many of us walk around carrying
Mhm.
it with nobody having any idea about what that grief is, right? I was just wondering, after, you know, such a profound loss, how are you continuing to heal now, this many years? Your baby's, in school now, and like, so how do you nurture yourself? What does life look like today after that loss? Because from somebody who loves you and sits outside of that circle and sees you, I feel very much like you are rising now, and I feel like it's been a very dark, difficult time for a lot of years, right? And even maybe if after 3, it got a little easier, but I think still very, very difficult. And now I see you rising, and it's a pleasure to see that. But what's life like for you today?
It is it is wonderful. I'm 13 years in, and I'm benefiting from the wisdom of being in my mid 50s. All of
Mm,
those
amen.
things that I didn't understand when I was younger about older women and how they don't give a fuck about certain things, and they just seem more confident, and I just thought, I said, oh well, that I just dismissed that. Now that I'm here, I am I I still have fucks to give, but I'm more particular about what I give them to. And it's my women friends that hold me up, that I'm able to hold up. I am I have learned that real strength is through vulnerability. I'm
Whew.
not interested in conversations that are about countertops and uh, and barbecue grills and bullshit. I'm interested in these kinds of conversations. I'm
Yeah.
interested in people who have been through it and sharing, not that victim mentality, but like also like, hey, I'm suffering, and I'm still going.
Yeah.
And that's how I get filled up. And I get really filled up when people hear about me, or they ask me, they're just like, well, you're pretty cool, what's your secret? And I'm just like, oh, I've been through the fucking ringer,
Yeah.
and
That's
I've
a hell of
learned,
a secret. Yeah. Yeah. Good
and
for
I've
you.
learned, and that's yeah, but not, again, I hope that's making sense, that it's not this victim poor me mentality, but it's also like, this is me, and I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. And when there's people who are willing and able to sit and be comfortable, and not just looking for ways of dismissing being uncomfortable. I've always been comfortable being uncomfortable, but I had some choices. These the loss of mom and Ben, that 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 pulled the rug out from under me, where it was like, oh, we're not in control. Anything can happen at any time. And
Anytime.
I, anytime.
Yep.
And to not live in fear of that, but to live in acceptance of that,
Yep.
and to really understand that mature idea of acceptance. You know, people will say, well, how do you accept the unacceptable? And it's just like, well, what choice do you have?
Yes. Exactly. What choice do you have? Yeah. Yeah, and I mean,
And you do have a choice.
and I haven't met anybody who's come through unscathed who's just like, wow, that went exactly how I
Mm-mm.
thought it was going to go. Super easy. Like, I don't know anybody who has experienced
No.
life like that, not one
Mm-mm.
single person. And I would suggest that if
No.
people think they have people in their lives that have had that life, that they probably are not paying attention. That's what I would say. So,
Well,
again, oh, go ahead.
it's the inconvenient. Oh, it's the
Yeah.
inconvenientness. I believe that the most important book ever written, of course, besides the Bible,
Yeah.
but the most important book ever written is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. If I could encourage your listeners to read one book, it's Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. It's small, it's mighty. He was a psychiatrist, and he survived Auschwitz, and he was there at the liberation, and he lost his entire family. He lost everybody, and he survived.
Yeah.
And as he got out and tried to go on with life, he made some observations. Of course, this is, pick it up and have your own conclusions, but this is my very lame synopsis. Is he had basically said and saw that there's certain people, if you're meeting people and they both have had trauma and the most awful thing happened to them, you can see that sometimes there's people who do they're doing well, they're doing better than others. How do you describe that? How does that happen? So he went to create a he set out to find the answer, and that's Man's Search for Meaning. And so I won't tell you. You have to
Okay.
read it
No,
for
yeah.
yourself, but
I haven't read that yet, but I will. I'll put it on my list. Well, I thank you, H. I thank you for your honesty and your, just your belief in doing the right thing. And I think you do that a lot, and you work really hard at that. So, I do have what I like to call the ending rapid fire, and it's adapted from James Lipton of the Actors Studio. I don't know if you watch that, but I used to watch that all the time as a kid, and so I love it. And so it's a great way to kind of wrap this up. So if you're game, they're very quick questions. So just whatever pops into your head. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
100%. Let's go.
Okay. What is your favorite word?
Ooh, grace,
What is your least favorite word?
lucky. I find it dismissive. I hate it.
What turns you on?
Wisdom.
What turns you off?
What turns me off? Entitlement. Entitled people. Spoiled people.
What sound or noise do you love?
Besides my own voice,
Yeah.
I love your laugh, and I do love the call of a loon. It's quintessential Minnesotan.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh God, I hate whistling. Hate it.
No, really? Interesting.
Oh, most people think they're awesome whistlers, and they're not. It's like a fart with your mouth. Just, you're not good. You're not a good whistler. Sorry, you're not.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
It's so good, right?
Classic.
Like, yeah, it's good.
Oh yeah.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh God, I would. I'd love to be a funeral director.
What?
I want to do everything except embalm people. I
Love.
want to do the managing and the grief and the organizing, all that stuff, but I don't want to
Yeah,
embalm people. But
I
funeral
think that's.
director, that would be, yes.
What profession would you not like to do?
Oh God, anything with banking.
All right. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you reach the pearly gates?
She's home.
Ah, lovely. And last question. What does strong like a girl mean about you?
Oh, Strong Like a Girl, to me, is the power of and. It's the balance of, it's the healthy balance of two extremes, right? Tender and tough. That it's strength through vulnerability. It is beautiful and badass. It's both. You and I both love Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yes.
Why? Because they're salty and sweet. Hello.
That's true too.
That's what makes them perfect.
I love you. Thank you so much for doing this and being so honest and raw with us. And as always, I appreciate you very, very much. So keep rising.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. Oh, Tanya, thank you so much.
As always, you can find more information about our guests in the show notes or at stronglikeagirlpodcast.ca. Follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and thank you very much for listening.